Life and business can feel chaotic when you're trying to do it all. That's where Andy Melton Coaching comes in. For nearly 2 decades, Dr. Andy Melton has helped high-achieving leaders find freedom in their time, relationships, finances, and purpose. His 90-minute strategic rhythm reset is more than a coaching session. It's a chance to redesign your week so you can get more done without burning out. You'll create a personalized rhythm blueprint that aligns your goals and priorities and walk away with a clear plan to focus your energy. Trade chaos for clarity and bring your dreams to life. To learn more and book your session, visit scalinguph2o.com/Andy Melton. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/ANDYMELTON. Don't wait. Schedule a strategic rhythm reset with Dr. Andy Melton today. Are your glycol systems protected and operating at their best? Thermal Fluid Technologies is here to ensure they are. Trusted by industry professionals for over 25 years, their protocol heat transfer fluids provide unmatched corrosion protection and system performance for industrial HVAC, process heating and cooling, and food and beverage applications. Need a clean start? Their cleaner and degreaser prepare your system for years of trouble-free service. And their state-of-the-art lab offers one of the most comprehensive coolant testing programs available. Upgrade your system's performance today with Thermal Fluid Technologies. To learn more about Thermal Fluid Technologies, go to scalinguph2o.com/TFT. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/TFT. Thermal Fluid Technologies, where performance meets peace of mind. Welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast, the podcast where we scale up on knowledge so we don't scale up our systems. I'm Trace Blackmore, the host of the Scaling Up H2O podcast. And Nation, I said it last week, I'm going to say it again. I cannot believe it's 2026. And of course, you're probably tired of hearing me say this, but I thought 2025 went by so quickly. Hopefully, 2026 does not go by as quickly. Of course, time goes by at the same rate. It always has. I guess we were having a great time last year, so maybe we do want it to go by as quickly as it seemed to go by last year. But Nation, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. I want to thank you for making this part of your regular water treatment service routine. I hear from so many people that this podcast goes with them whenever they travel to account, and they are listening on things that they can improve on, things that they can read up on, things that they never even thought about they could do. And they are bringing the Scaling Up H2O podcast along with them on each and every service day. So thank you for doing that. Also, thank you for all those people that have told other water treatment professionals about this podcast. We are among the top podcast of all podcasts. We rank in the top 2.5%, which is just amazing. Well, of all podcasts, and they look at things like how many people subscribe, how often people are listening, how many times they share, but then also how consistent is the podcast? How many times does the podcast air, and does it air consistently? And how long has it been going on for? So it's hard to believe that I started this podcast back in 2017. And Nation was actually April 1st, 2017. And the April Fool's joke was on everybody because it was actually a real podcast. Yes, if you listen to episode number 1, who would think that that was a real podcast? But it really turned into something. And I really enjoy bringing this podcast to you on a weekly basis. And of course, that is going to continue in 2026. So, welcome to 2026. We have so many awesome things planned for you during the year of 2026, and we are going to experience all of those things together. Now, speaking of together, a lot of times we will end up at different trade shows or conventions together. And of course, that is one of my favorite things to do, is to go out and see all of the things that scaling up members are doing and see them in action at different trade shows. Now, just a couple of months ago in November, I got to see so many of you at the Association of Water Technologies training, and that was fantastic because so many of you came up to me, you gave me show ideas, you gave me people you wanted me to interview, but you also told me what this podcast meant to you and things that you were doing. And I think that that is just amazing. Now, the only way we can do things like that is to do things like this, and that is talk about the upcoming conferences of 2026. Now, coming up February 8th through February 12th at the Westin Galleria in Houston, Texas, is the CTI Annual Conference and Expo. And of course, that is put on by the Cooling Technology Institute. And this is going to be all things cooling. It's going to be cooling technologies, discussions on standards, innovations in the industry, and it is a great conference to attend. And we, of course, are going to have all of that information for you on our events page that you can simply go to by going to scalinguph2o.com, going over to our events page, and you'll not only see that, you will see all of the other events that we have. And it's in the beginning of the year. Something I recommend that you do is you go through that events calendar and start picking out some things that you want to attend. Now, maybe you can just say, I'm going to go, and you go. But maybe you've got to convince somebody to go. And now your job is to figure out, what are you going to bring back from that conference for yourself? And what are you going to bring back for your team? And that's how you're going to talk about it. That's how you're going to get to go to that conference, because it's not just about how you're going to grow, but it's about how you're going to bring all of that stuff back to your company so everybody can grow. Now, if you didn't listen to last week's episode, I talked about the 12-week year, and we actually talked about that very thing. We talked about how you can use the 12-week year to help you kind of plan what conferences you want to go to, what you want to get out of those conferences, and then use that as a guide to lead people into the conversation that you want to go to a particular conference. And these are all the things that everybody is going to get out of them. So if you didn't listen to that episode, go ahead after you finish listening to this episode, listen to last week's episode, because I would love for you to go to all of the conferences and trade shows that you want to go to this year. And that's one way that maybe I can help get you there. Now, another event that I just get so excited about is the Association of Water Technologies Technical Training Seminars. Now, the technical training seminars are always split up into two dates. The first one is right around the corner. It's going to be March 10th through 13th, and it's going to be in Frisco, Texas, which is very close to Dallas. It's an easy flight. Of course, I live in Atlanta. Everything's an easy flight, but Dallas has a great airport. Actually, they have two great airports that you can fly into, and then you can have an entire week of technical training at the AWT conference there. Now, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be teaching several courses, so I hope to see you in the audience. It's one of my favorite things to do, and it's one of the ways that I get to meet a lot more members of the Scaling Up Nation. It's one of the ways that I get to hear, what do you think about this podcast? But it's also one of the ways that I get to see you in action of becoming a better water treater, of raising the bar of the industrial water treatment industry and making you just better in this industry. All those things are the reason that this podcast exists. And that event just puts all of those things together. So I hope that you make time to go and learn everything that you can. Now, there's multiple different courses that are going on. They've really added so much to the calendar. So we're going to have everything you need to know on our show notes page about that. And you might be saying, Trace, you just said it was going to be in 2 different times. And that is correct. I don't know the time that it's going to take place after March. I do know it's going to be around the 3rd quarter. And as soon as I get a rock solid date, now I've heard rumors of dates, but I don't want to give you rumors on this show. As soon as I hear a rock solid date, I will let you know so you'll be able to plan in Q3. I'm fairly certain it's in Q3, but I will let you know for sure as soon as I get that information. Now, Scaling Up Nation, again, go to our events page. We have got so much information on there, and we try to make it as easy as possible for you to know everything that's going on in the industrial water treatment community so you can make the best decision for you on what you want to attend. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/events, or you can simply navigate over to our events page. Well, Nation, you know him, you love him. Of course, I'm talking about James McDonald, and every year James comes up with a new and fun way for us to become better water treaters. You heard the first installment last week. Well, here is the second installment of Words with Water by James.
Hello and welcome to Words of Water with James, the industrial water game show where I give you the definition and you get to guess the word or phrase being defined. Will you rise to the top or get blown down to try your luck another day? There's only one way to find out on Words of Water with James. Today's definition is an ion with a net positive charge, formed when an atom or molecule loses one or more electrons. Can you guess the word or phrase? The answer is cation. Okay, for those who got it correct, step to the right. For those who got it wrong, please step to the left. Ooh, that doesn't get old. I'm James McDonald, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Words of Water with James.
Well, Scaling Up Nation, here is a fun fact that maybe you have never heard of, but on this day in 1903, the Hall of Fame for Great Americans was dedicated in New York, celebrating leaders who have shaped this nation. Now, why am I bringing that up? Well, because it was all about core values, it was all about reputation, it was all about success. And I think that really ties together today's interview. Here it is. My lab partner today is JD Roth, Managing Director and co-owner of Guardian Chemicals. JD, welcome to the podcast.
It's awesome to be here, Trace.
It's awesome to have you here. We've been talking about this for a while, and it's finally here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
JD, you and I met each other at the Association of Water Technologies, and you are now a Rising Tide Mastermind member. I'm a huge fan of yours. Do you mind telling the Scaling Up Nation a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I've been in the industry now for about 15 or 17 years. Grew up around this business. It wasn't exactly a family business, but father was in it with his partner and always loved learning how things worked. Came into the business formally in 2008 after doing my undergrad in chemistry and have been working here ever since. And, it's funny. One of the things I tell just about every single person that starts here is there really isn't a company. There is just a whole bunch of people who have decided to work together towards a common goal, which is why I feel so passionate about the way in which we hire, the types of people that we hire, the people we keep, the people we don't, because it's something worth protecting. And if you've got great people and you take care of great people, they take care of your customers and your customers take care of you.
So much I want to unpack from that. What's the common goal?
The common goal is to build a better future for our communities, our environment, and our staff. I was having this conversation with my brother the other day. It's really the last part of that I think for me sits most heavily. This idea of being able to build a better future for our staff, to give them better opportunities than they may have otherwise had, to give them the opportunity to send their kids to school or have healthcare or buy a house or go on vacation in ways that are impactful and leave them at the end of a great career feeling as though they did something important and worthwhile. Like if I'm sitting on my deathbed and I know I was able to do that, the revenue, the dollars, the wins, the losses, everything else flows away, and that's okay.
I love that answer. Well, we're going to talk about how you find the right people, and you've got some fun ways that you actually go about that. So I'm really excited about that conversation. But there are different ways that people get into this industry. You're one of the few that was born into this industry. What was it like growing up the son of a water treater?
It's a mixed bag. There's a sentence that plagued me for many years, and it was about second generations and is often envied, rarely admired. And coming into a business like this is challenging because, on one hand, you've got these big shoes that you feel like you need to fill, this history and legacy of doing things the way they've always been done, because that's what built the company up to what it is today. On the other hand, I'm a big believer in the power of authenticity and to do things in a way that feels true to my core, feels true to the organization's core. And, the honest answer is navigating that shift from filling shoes to being authentic was one that took me longer to embrace and understand than I think I originally anticipated. I had a privilege for sure of learning about the business and what it means to run a business and have responsibility to people and customers and vendors from a very early age. But there is a very big difference between hearing about those things and discussing them and experiencing them when it's real dollars or real people's livelihoods on the line. That is a very, very different experience, one that I don't think you can replicate without just going through it.
What's one of your earliest water treatment memories?
Ooh, I can tell you my first core memory in water treatment. I had done the initial training at the office and then in the field, and I'd spent some time with the various reps trying to learn, what's what is a steam boiler, what's a hot water boiler, what's a cooling tower. And I remember I went to the very first site I ever went to by myself, and I was in the penthouse of a building, and I was looking around, and there was a gentleman from one of the mechanical contractors doing some work on something, chiller, whatever it was, and he looked at me And he said, "You have no idea what you're doing, do you?" And I thought in that moment, I had two very distinct paths forward. I could either lie and say, "Oh no, I know exactly what I'm doing," or I could fess up and say, "Yep, you caught me. Can you help?" And I went with the latter path and I asked for the help. And, interestingly enough, I think that really outlined my path in the industry. The power of just asking for help from people who know more about a specific area than I do has led to wonderful friendships, love of learning, and a recognition that I don't need to be the know it all in everything. Surround myself with great people who care about one another, and life is a whole lot easier.
Is that why you joined the Rising Tide Mastermind?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, especially coming in to run this business at a relatively young age. I mean, I was 33 when we bought the business. I recognized pretty early on that I didn't have either all of the knowledge or the experience to be able to do this on my own. And there is tremendous power in vulnerable sharing and learning from peers who have gone through this stuff. And where possible, I do my best to share for those who can benefit from it, my experiences, the things I've done well and the things I've done poorly. And I think one of the great things with the Rising Time Mastermind is that's the whole kit and caboodle. That's the whole project, is people sharing their experiences and learning from one another. And that the people in my group have just been wonderful to learn from.
And you not only are learning from your group, you actually taught the entire mastermind. You're doing all sorts of fun things with AI in your company. We're not talking about AI today, but at the live event, the most recent one we had, when was that? May, you did an entire presentation on that.
Well, I think that's the thing. Everybody in this world is doing cool stuff. It's incumbent on us to take the time to listen. And if you give somebody the opportunity to shine and showcase what they can do and what they're doing, there are very few people in this world I feel like I can't learn something from. And then likewise, I'm a believer in the power of give and take, right? You can't be all take. And so if there's something that I can give that costs me nothing, why on earth wouldn't I do that?
It was a great presentation. I know I learned a lot. I heard a lot of great feedback from other mastermind members. And speaking of the mastermind, one of the things that we start off with is we do wins. We normally share a personal win and a business win. And I remember one of your wins, you were talking about your hiring process and you mentioned the term hiring Olympics. And I think you said, yeah, we had a great hiring Olympics last week. And we were like, what? What are you talking about? You explained that to us. We were all intrigued. And that led to this conversation today. I thought it was a great concept that I was hoping you could share with the entire Scaling Up Nation. So let's just start with that term. What is the Hiring Olympics and how did you evolve to get to that?
Yeah, it's a super cool program, and I'm really excited about where we've come to today with it. So, the genesis for this hiring Olympics really came from two separate paths. One was I'm part of a different organization called Entrepreneurs Organization, and there's a lot of learning days that come with that. And one of the learning days was around the Vern Harnish scaling up philosophy. And I saw a hiring technique in there that I really liked. So it was very clear steps in the hiring process, each step designed to achieve a specific end. So the first interview was 10 minutes, 5 questions. That's it. Because we've all been stuck in interviews where we knew 5 minutes in, this is not going to work. And on the other hand, there are some candidates where you're really excited and it allows enough time to say, yeah, I'm excited. Let's go forward. The next step is a competency interview where you get to know, okay, does this person have the horsepower to do the job that's being asked. The third step was probably the most novel, and it was bringing in core value fit people from the organization, not necessarily a direct manager or even a manager at all, to do what we call a 2x2 interview. So 2 people assess competency and 2 people assess core values. And then it is a group decision on the hiring. And so this was one of the channels that really overhauled the way in which we do hiring generally. So even outside of the hiring Olympics. The hiring Olympics came as a result of a program that we call our GBA program. That's the Graduate Business Analysts. So we recognized that within the organization, there were these projects and jobs that we needed bandwidth to be able to do, but couldn't give it to most people here because they were busy doing their regular job. Accounts payable, accounts receivable, QEHS, whatever it is. So we needed people who were exclusively project-based, but we also needed them to be very dynamic individuals who could handle a broad variety of problems. So what we end up creating, because I think the nature of the job is one of the critical parts about this, the job is a 2-year role, 6 months in 4 different departments. 6 months in finance, 6 months in operations, 6 months in sales, 6 months in marketing. And the design of the role was twofold. One was to be able to service and understand the entirety of the business. The second was to be able to create a role that was really appealing for high capacity individuals coming out of university who didn't necessarily want to go into a pure stream like finance or banking or law or something like that. So now we've got the job, and now we know what it's going to look like. And the next gig was, how do we bring people in and assess many people quickly as to how they're going to be able to perform within the organization? And so this idea of the hiring Olympics was somewhat accidental and somewhat intentional all at the same time. It came to a place where the first time on this, we had about 10 people that we were really excited about, but really had no way of determining how to do it. And given the previous hiring mechanism that I was just telling about, especially adding the 2x2 interviews in there, that's a long process. That's a lot of people time. So we didn't want to consume 40, 50 hours worth of people time just to be able to hire for these 1 or 2 roles. So we said, all right, we're going to bring everybody in together. And when we bring everybody in together, let's take advantage of that unique scenario. And we wanted to create an environment where they could both be competitive, but also be collaborative. So the day is broken up into a few separate segments. There is a core values interview. So each of the candidates will sit in a 2-person core values interview. There is a collaborative case study. There is an individual case study. And there's a 2-person competency interview. And so all of these candidates are working their way through a calendar of these meetings. And we get basically 4 separate sessions with each candidate for 10 candidates, all the way up to 20 candidates, depending on what we're hiring for, in 4 hours. I think quite possibly the coolest part of the day is the collaborative case study. So there we're taking predefined cases, we're giving it to these students who come from a variety of disciplines and say, work together, come up with your recommendation based on this given set of facts, and then walk me through how you got there. So this, a case study interview is relatively common in management consulting type interviews. To my knowledge, I have never heard it used in the chemical industry at all.
I haven't either.
but it's a remarkable tool to be able to understand a person's ability to understand a problem, articulate the problem, work through a variety of ways in which they could come to the answer. And then by doing it in a group setting, we can see how they work with peers who are also competitors for, there are fewer roles than there are people to come to a presentation solution. And it is fascinating. The human dynamics that are happening that we have the privilege of watching as they go through this are unreal.
This is fascinating. So we can all envision what you do. Can you maybe take us through what's going on? So you give them something, you say, we want you to analyze this. Walk us through that whole process if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So there's two different case studies, right? There's the individual case study, which is primarily mathematical, generally business oriented, but not necessarily. And what it looks like is, hey, a company is thinking about creating X product. Here is what we think the market is. Here is what some of the operational costs are. Compare it to the existing solution. And so it's just a bunch of math that they need to go through. So you're broadly using pure horsepower to figure that out. In the case of the group case study, what we did in that case, I think there were, in the last round, there was 12 applicants. We broke them into two groups of 6. Each group had a different case that they needed to go through. The case is more or less 3 pages plus some Excel files. So they're bringing their computers and they're ready to do work. And by and large, the cases that we use are about decisions. Because that's what businesses face, right? Running a business is just hundreds and thousands of decisions. And we want to evaluate these candidates on their ability to make decisions. So these cases are about, should this fictitious company set up a new manufacturing facility? Or should they subcontract? Should a company launch a new product, or should they spend more money and expand the revenue opportunities for an existing product? Like the types of decisions that you and I, Trace, face on a regular basis. What do I do, A or B? And the information, what I think is interesting is the information that's given is neither complete, because you never have complete information, nor is it perfectly accurate. And it forces the applicants to think critically about internal conflicts within the data that's provided. And it also forces them to delegate work quickly so that between them, they're not all working on the same issue. So, we'll buy HBR cases. So we're not building these things from scratch, and allocate them to the groups, and they go forward. There is defined answers, like there is a correct answer at the end of the day. But as I mentioned earlier, it's really the human dynamics and the thought process that matter most to us. A simple example of these types of questions is like, how many ping pong balls could you fit in a jumbo jet? Like, do we actually care what the answer is? No. But the way in which a person approaches the problem tells you a lot about their ability to break down complex scenarios into bite-sized pieces, right? You're thinking, okay, well, a jumbo jet is about 300 feet long. It's about 10 feet wide. I know the area of a cylinder. I know the approximate volume of a ball. I know the free space between balls is about 24%. With that, maybe you're going to account for the passenger seats. But this type of thinking is what we're looking for in the applicants. And what I think is really neat is when you watch good candidates support and coach those who are struggling with the problem.
Interesting. So you're actually looking for that, not that they got the best answer.
We've had some very, very bright people who got very good answers we've decided not to move forward with.
Before we jump back into our discussion, we're going to take a quick break to hear from one of our sponsors. Hey there, Scaling Up Nation. If there's one thing we know as water treaters, it's that success comes from building strong partnerships. And that's exactly what North Metal and Chemical Company is all about. My friends at North Metal are committed to creating long-term relationships built on trust, reliability, and innovation. Their industry-specific expertise means they understand your challenges and work tirelessly to provide great Northwest products along with a personal touch. With dedicated technical support, North Metal and Chemical Company stands out as a partner who truly cares about your success in the industrial water treatment space. Head over to scalinguph2o.com/north and start building a partnership you can count on. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/north. North Metal and Chemical Company, serving the water treatment industry since 1921. Let's dive back in right where we left off. This is fascinating. So does the candidate know that this is what they're going to endure, or do they just show up thinking it's going to be a regular job interview?
We give them a broad outline. So we let them know, here's what to expect. Here's how the day is going to look. Each candidate gets a package with their schedule, who they're meeting, what they're going to be talking about in each meeting, all ahead of them showing up. Because it does us no benefit to blindside candidates. Because if we get their subpar performance because they're stressed out of their minds, we ultimately haven't learned anything about the candidate. We want to see them at their best to best assess how well they'll fit within the organization.
So as you're assessing, what is the role of your current team members? What are they doing during this process?
So different people are playing different roles. So there's competency interviewers who are really looking for horsepower. They're looking, what is the raw horsepower of this individual? There are core value interviewers who are looking for how well is this person going to not just be able to fit within our core values, how are they going to lead our core values? And then there are the case study watchers who are really people observers. They're watching, how are these people interacting? Are they coaching and supporting? Are they belittling? Are they ignoring? What is the team dynamic that these people are creating, whether intentionally or unintentionally? And then at the end of our, usually this takes about 4 hours to go through all the interviews. At the end, it's a group decision. And so every person who played a role is giving their 2 cents on, how do they fit from a core values perspective? How do they fit from a competency perspective? How do they fit from a team dynamic perspective?
How did you train and prepare your team so they knew how to do each one of their roles?
So each one of our interviews outside of the hiring Olympics, we do this as a matter of course. So we always do core value interviews. We always do competency interviews. And this is an experience that we give to all of our team members here because we think that interviewing shouldn't just be managers. It affects everyone. So we have a number of people in the organization participate, and those are the people who now have the experience and who can show up effectively during the hiring Olympics.
You said this process takes about 4 hours after all the candidates have left and now the team has gotten together and you're discussing it. What is that conversation? How do you determine which one is the best candidate?
So first we're looking for any vetoes. Okay, if they're a core values misfit, I don't care how good they are anywhere else, they're gone.
Do you mind sharing your core values with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Although you're putting me on the spot, and I'm going to see if I can remember all of them right now. So, one of my favorites is elevate others, create heroes and those around you, growth mindset, grit, initiative, courage, and seeks understanding. So they've got to be core values fits, right? They've got to hit, our bar, because we're an EOS company, is 5 out of 6 core values most of the time. So if we think that's going to be an issue, that's a deal breaker for us. And then it gets to the subjective conversation around competency. How did they do on the individual case study? And, the really tricky part is how did they interact with their peers during the group case study? But the amount of alignment that we typically see is very high. Rarely do we have a situation where one person's advocating for, a couple of candidates over here and the other is really vehemently disagreeing and advocating for totally different candidates. We've worked really hard to reinforce what this company is about, and as a result, there's really good alignment on the people front.
I can only imagine how empowered your team feels because they're so involved in this process and you're involving everybody.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Like, it's a lot of work to run that day. I think you need the resources to be able to do it effectively. I'd say we probably have 12 to 13 people running that day as it goes, whether they're organizing or facilitating or participating in the interviews. But I would agree, if people feel ownership over the people that are added into the organization, I think they're going to invest more time, effort, and energy into those people's success. But also, it's one of the ways in which we can recognize the contribution that those individuals make within the company and saying, hey, listen, your voice matters.
You've been doing this for how long?
3 years now, this hiring Olympic piece.
So, what is the result after 3 years of field trial?
So I would say the results have been very good. All but one have stayed with the organization. All but one candidates that have come through the GBA program have stayed with the organization. And many of them have taken multiple different roles, even in a short period of time. Probably the biggest issue we've run into with this trace is there are fights as to which department gets to keep them longest because they're big needle movers within a department.
So, they go through all these different departments and then do they get to decide which one they want to be at?
So it's a matching process. So they'll go through finance. Typically, we don't want to let somebody match in the first 6 months because they just haven't seen enough of the organization. But sometimes they love the department and there's a need. So, okay, fine, go ahead. But as they go through each department, each group has the ability to say, hey, I really like that guy or girl. I'd really like to have them in my group. And then depending on, need and budget and timing, we might say, okay, yes, you can have them, but we need to push them over to this other group to get, a couple of projects pushed forward. And there's also another option, which is maybe we got a great person, but their future is in banking or they want to become a lawyer. In worst case scenario, we had a great person for 2 years and they can tell their friends that this was a great place to work and we get more great people in behind them.
After doing this for 3 years, I'm sure you've learned lots of lessons and you've revamped every time you do this. What are some of the big lessons you've learned?
Probably one of the biggest ones that we've seen is the value of organization ahead of these hiring Olympic days. Like, it is a lot of people coordination who are already stressed because they're in a interview dynamic, and you throw on what is effectively a gladiator match on top of that. So just, having these ready built packages with a schedule, like here's what you should expect, here's what the day is going to look like so that you can show up in your best possible way. I mean, that makes a huge difference. Giving thought to the cases and thinking critically about what type of thinking we want the candidates to go through, that has taken effort. So finding the right size and scope of a case is a challenge. The other piece is, it's worth noting, people who are getting ready to interview for management consulting or something like that, they're used to cases. Most people are not. And so one of the things that we're going to be doing going forward is really prepping people on what a case is. And I think with our preliminary emails that also outline what the day is going to look like, we're going to give them an example case. So they know, oh, this is exactly what I should be expecting. This is what it looks like. This is what an answer looks like, so that it's not a wildly foreign concept to them.
And I think you mentioned earlier you're getting all those from Harvard Business Review.
Exactly. They've got thousands and thousands of them, and you can just buy them from their website.
Now, if somebody is listening and they think this sounds amazing, which I do, how does somebody like me get started?
First is, this approach, this Olympic style approach, is not applicable for every role. So I would think this is for roles where you either want to draw a lot of attention or are looking for a very specific type of individual with a very high bandwidth. Also, someone who might not otherwise be interested in our industry. The second part is, I think it can be scaled up. You don't need to start at 10 or 20 applicants on the first go around. 5 or 6 can also do the trick and get the exact same output done effectively. And the last part is, with other roles, try, if you haven't already, bringing in frontline key contributor individuals into the interview process, so that during the hiring Olympics is not a person's first time interviewing anybody.
JD, this has been fascinating. If somebody wanted to reach out to you and ask you more questions, are you open to that?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll put your LinkedIn and contact information on our show notes page. Again, this is so many steps above what most people are doing. And when it's so important, like who are we going to bring on our team? And when the team is so important, we just don't take the time that we need, most of us. And you're doing it right. You're doing it differently. And I want to thank you for sharing that with the Scaling Up Nation.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you're not done yet because I've got some lightning round questions.
Oh,
So
no.
it's
Okay.
yeah,
I'm
it's
ready.
now getting ready to get real. So here we go. Lightning round question number one. If you can go back in time and talk to your former self on your very first day as a water treater, what advice would you give?
2 things: stay curious, and you only have one reputation. Guard it with your life.
What are the last few books that you've read?
Ooh, it's been mostly with you here, Trace. So, Fearless Pricing. And actually, I am rereading or re-listening to, if I'm admitting to cheating with audiobooks, Super Communicators.
Speaking of super communicators, Charles Duhigg, the author, recently did a TED talk on that book. And I think that TED Talk does such a good job as supplementing the book. He talks about the 3 types of communication. If you haven't read the book, you don't know what we're talking about, but you can listen to the TED Talk. So go check that out. Look at Charles Duhigg, Super Communicators. It's about 10 minutes. Next question. When they make a movie about J.D. Roth, who's playing J.D.?
I mean, I'm hoping they would go with like a Ryan Reynolds or something like that. It'd be great.
Have to.
Yeah, another Canadian.
Final question. If you could talk to anybody throughout history, who would it be with and why?
Whew. I'm going to say Mahatma Gandhi. I would be fascinated to listen to his approach to making change when change seemed impossible.
JD, great answers and great topic. Thank you so much again for sharing all of that. I know I learned a lot. I'm excited. I don't know how I'm going to use this information, but I'm going to use this information. I love the fact that we're diving deeper into the most important thing, and that's protecting and enhancing our culture. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Thanks for having me, Trace.
JD, once again, thank you for coming on the Scaling Up H2O podcast. JD is a great individual. I am sure fortunate to call him my friend. And what a great interview about building people first. Culture is everything. And when you double down on culture, everything has just such a strong foundation that you can build from. So, JD, thank you for sharing what it is that your company is doing and then inspiring so many people on the Scaling Up Nation, some things that we can do from that. You know, a company is simply a group of people working together towards a common goal. So, culture and hiring are so worth protecting and making sure that all of the activities around bringing new people into your culture, into your business, is going to elevate that culture. That is so important. I know we all know that, but sometimes it's easy to put a job description out there and then hire the first person that says that they can do the job. And then take it from me, it doesn't always work out. And then you have to do the whole thing over again. Well, it's not just the time that you spend, there's also damage done to the team. When you bring somebody in that is not bolstering the team, they're actually taking from the team, and you've got to do some work now to get the team back to the level that they were before that disturbance came into the team. So what might seem like it's fast to go ahead and get that job filled right now is really, really slow and counterproductive, because now you've got to go back and do the same thing you had to do in the first place, but now you have a lot of repair work that you have to do. Relational roles like Guardian's 2-year graduate business analyst program, that was just really cool to listen to. So I hope you got so much from this interview. I know I did. And I know whenever you invite a new team member in, you're really inviting them into your culture. And JD really gave us a great way to not only think about that, but also practice that. So my challenge for you is, if somebody were to ask you about your culture, are you able to answer them? Are you able to answer them in the same way that somebody else in your company would answer? It's an interesting question, and it's one that I hope that you ask your team, because if you're not all speaking with one voice, you all might not be rowing in the same direction. And if you're not rowing in the same direction, you're all doing a tremendous amount of work, but you're not getting the traction that you really should be. And by having a conversation around core values, around culture, you are able to make sure that everybody is speaking with the same voice and everybody is rowing in the same direction. Now, there are a number of books out there that you can look at to try to help with this. One of my favorite books is a book called Traction, which is on the entrepreneurial operating system. And if you want a copy of that book, I'll make it real easy. We have an affiliate link set up. It's scalinguph2o.com/traction. And it really talks about how important it is not just to have a same message around culture. It really starts to set up the entire company in 6 different areas. Now, I've done shows on EOS before, so I'm not going to go into all of that today. If you want to go back into our archives, I've got several shows where I've interviewed water treatment companies that are running on EOS. I've also interviewed several of the authors of the EOS library. So we've got plenty of content out there if you want to learn more about that. But I really think that that is a really well-rounded book. If you listen to today's interview and you're wondering, how do I get started? What do I need to do? This will give you a good set of actions that you can do and allow you to see how it works holistically over your entire company. Well, Nation, I want to thank you for listening to today's episode. As always, if you've got an idea, a guest, a question, anything about a show, please don't keep that to yourself. Let me know what that is. Go to scalinguph2o.com, go over to our show ideas page, and let us know what you're thinking. In the meantime, be sure to go over to our events page as well. It's early enough in the year that you can start choosing events that you want to go to, and then you can plan around those to make sure that you are going to be there. And Nation, thanks for listening to the show. Have a great week, folks. We'll have a brand new show for you next week. Until then, take care. There's no doubt about it. Taking the Certified Water Technologist examination is one of the most challenging tasks you'll do in your water treatment career. But I'm here to help you with the first step. And that first step is my free gift to you, and that is a free CWT prep course. That's right. If you go to scalinguph2o.com/CWT prep, you'll get a portion of the paid course where you can see the type of materials that you'll be working with if you decide to sign up for the full course. Again, this is my free gift to you to get you on the journey to getting your Certified Water Technologist designation. Go to scalinguph2o.com/CWT prep today.